Welcome, everybody, to another episode of Amplify Your Business. Today, I am talking to another farm kid, somebody who grew up on a farm in Bonnyville area, I believe it is, and found herself down in southern Alberta running a safety company. So with me today is Amy Zuk Olsen. She's the founder and co-partner of Safety Buzz Campus. And so they do all sorts of safety-oriented training for a wide range of industries. But she's got 20 years of entrepreneurial experience that we're going to dig into here in a moment. So welcome to the show, Amy.
Well, thanks so much for having me, Lance.
Okay, so I want to hit you up first with a question I usually ask most of my guests, and that is, you've been an entrepreneur now for 20 years or so. What would you say are three things that every entrepreneur needs to know?
Well, when you're limited to three things, the number one thing that I think is invaluable for everybody to know is being an entrepreneur is extremely difficult work.
Yeah.
And regardless of the outside vision looking in, you know darn well that there's been hills and valleys that somebody has gone through to be able to endure and in my case be in business for 20 years.
Yeah.
Number two, make sure you have the right team.
Mm-hmm.
It's so very easy to think that I got this, I can do everything. But if you want to have a business where you can expand and grow, you need to realize that you can't do everything and you need to be able to let go and empower others to be able to help you with that.
Yeah.
And I guess the third thing in having that right team is really looking into who is on your team that is best suited to grow your business and to be very, very involved with that person every step of the way on building those growth goals.
Okay.
It's so very quick and easy to grow too fast, to spend too much money, to go beyond your means, and all of a sudden you have no business left.
Yeah.
So, we took a lot of time and effort to plan growth and to grow at a rate that we can handle and the team that we have can handle.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's such a delicate balance to achieve, I think. And it's, for me anyway, it's a constant dance along that investment of time and energy and resources into the staff and training them and so on, developing them. But then at the same time, making sure that you have the cash flow that growth will fuel, but then also the cash flow that fuels growth, right? So it is just such a delicate balance there. Yeah, yeah. Okay, so we're going to get into some more questions about how you manage some of that here in a minute. But I think the audience would benefit from understanding a little bit more about your business. So, what is it that Safety Buzz Campus? What is it that you guys do? What problems are you trying to solve?
Well, pretty simple. We're trying to solve people's problems in order for both individually, as a corporation, how to be safe.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of people look at safety, and over the years, I've had tons of people say, well, how do I get into safety? Well, number one, what do you want to do? I think sometimes there's a lack of education on what areas a business requires safety for. And that's one of the things that we've really been focusing on the last few years is building a culture of safety. So both internally and externally. So the way that we have done that to solve people's problems is we become part of their organization. So whether we're doing the safety training, where people come to our campus or we go to them, we've worked with companies to manage their culture and to mentor people.
Yeah.
And that's so important because many businesses don't even realize that you need to have a safety plan.
Yeah.
Some businesses, they say, okay, well, I'm going to be able to do this. I'm going to manage safety when they're already so overwhelmed. So not only do we come in, but like I said, we become part of their team and we start to build culture. Daniel Quill said in his book Culture Code that one of the most important things to building culture is to build in safety and security.
Hmm.
And it was when I heard that, it really stuck with me. And I started to think about it. If you've got people coming to a workplace and they don't feel safe, they're not going to actually be able to be positive within the culture. So, how
Yeah.
do you build a culture if people don't feel like you care about them enough to keep them safe?
Yeah.
So that's a really large part of what we do. We have class 1 and 3 truck driver training, and certainly with the lack of drivers, that's been important. And the last division that we have is our air trailer division, so field safety services.
Yeah, it's really interesting what you said there. I really like to go back to that quote in terms of just the impact that safety has on the culture of the organization. And so, there's going to be some industries where it's much more important than others, I suppose. Like my industry, as a marketing agency, we don't bump into a lot of safety issues really, but there is that security piece that, hey, the company has your back, right? And so that's
Yeah,
where a lot of our health, and which would be health and safety for a lot of companies, it's a little bit more focused on the health side of things, that we really look after our employees. So and it just takes me to earlier this week, we were on location filming some videos for a client of ours who is in the oil and gas industry. And the one thing that went across just about everybody's comments for their culture video, when what is their culture, was this focus on safety, which was
right.
so critical and important. So yeah, I've heard it right there from an industry that is just, safety is such a critical aspect of it. So yeah, it's really neat. Okay, so safety training. This is something where I'm pretty sure that when you were a 12-year-old girl, you weren't thinking, what am I going to be when I grow up? I'm going to be a safety trainer. So tell me a little bit about your story. How did you get into this? How did you end up finding yourself running a safety training company?
Well, being a 12-year-old girl, I grew up on the farm, as you'd mentioned. And I always worked with my dad. I was the oldest sibling, so I was the one out there. I was the one helping him clean out pens, open gates, bring the feed. So, I was looked at as a helper. I wasn't looked at as a 12-year-old girl.
Yeah.
So as I got older, I always had that entrepreneurial spirit between my dad running the farm, well, my dad and mom, and my mom having a boutique in the small town of Bonnyville. They both own a business, and in my head, I'm like, well, this is pretty cool. They get to set their own hours. They get to do what they want. Certainly being a little naive to what it was all about being a business owner, but I did gain excellent work ethic. And talking to my dad, he was doing a little succession planning, and we just had that conversation about farming, and he's like, Amy, don't farm, go make some money, go work in the oil field, because I had mentioned I had some aspirations of working in the oil field. So
Yeah.
I thought, well, you know what, let's do it. Took my fourth class power engineering, and away I went.
Yeah, I'm just going to pause the story there just real quickly, because it's so funny that your dad was telling you not to follow his footsteps and stay in
Yeah.
agriculture. So I grew up on a farm in northern Alberta, and my father was always like, yeah, you have to come back and be on the farm, because it was a multi-generational farm, and so the farm has
Yeah.
to live on, right? And so me being the eldest son, it was like that was my the expectation. And my
Mhm.
mom on the other side was always saying, don't go into farming. This lifestyle is just so tough, right? So difficult. Go off, you're smart, go off, get your education and do something else. but don't come back to the farm. And so it's just funny that your dad was actually, notice that you have had maybe other aspirations and abilities that really would maybe provide you with a better lifestyle than what he had or whatever that he wanted you to aspire to. So yeah, really interesting. So anyway, continue your story.
Yeah. So within the oil field, I was an operator. It was pretty cool, good money. I got to work with a bunch of great people. I did not like the cold. I did not like the early mornings. There's a lot of things that weren't quite my cup of tea. And one day I was in a safety training course. The instructor, she wasn't a whole lot older than me, and I looked at her and I thought, man, why don't I do this?
Yeah.
So that kind of sparked it. I decided I'm going to start my own business and I'm going to do safety training. So literally probably 2 weeks later, I figured out what I needed to do, what kind of training I required. I had gone to university, so I had some business education behind me,
Yep.
and it was just go hard.
Yeah.
And that work ethic, it was simple. I was the trainer, I was the administrator, I was the bookkeeper, I was the janitor. I did it all,
All the
and
hats. Yeah.
all the hats. It was somewhat sustainable for a while, but then going back to my dad, he was always good to give me little gold nuggets. And one day we were driving, and he looked at me and he's like, Amy, you can't do this all by yourself. You
Yeah.
need to hire people. I'm like, what? Hire people? Like, who's going to be able to do what I'm doing?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Sure enough, I took that initiative. I took the risk and hired one person. They helped in the office. Then I had hired somebody else. They helped to do a little instructing, and slow but steady just had some growth from there. And then another moment I remember so vividly from my dad was when he told me, Amy, don't take this the wrong way, but I don't think you could work for anyone anymore. I think you just need to keep running a business. So I did what I have.
Well, and that's so true, right? There's so many of us entrepreneurs that we make really, really crappy employees. So
Mhm.
yeah, we kind of have to run our own businesses, otherwise we would be broke, unemployed. Yeah.
Right.
So okay, so those were the early stages of that. So you started the safety company then, and you started training people. And so talk to me a little bit about the growth of the business. So where between the startup to where you're at now, I understand there's been lots of different chapters. So mergers and acquisitions and selling and a bunch of things. So walk us through a little bit of that.
Sure. Yeah, it's quite a story. Again, you look at a business and you think, okay, well, things look pretty good, but most people don't really know the underneath. So I
Yeah.
started the safety training company in Bonnyville, and it's an oil and gas town, so it was always very busy. I loved what I did, had a great team. We started to grow and expand, and pretty soon the idea was, okay, well, where else do we go? So we'd done some training in the Lac La Biche area, decided to open up a satellite office in Lloydminster, and then life brings you all kinds of curves. I ended up moving to the Medicine Hat area for personal reasons, and of course, here I'm in Medicine Hat. I feel like I've got no purpose.
Hmm.
What am I going to do? Well, what's the natural progression? I'm going to bring Safety Buzz Campus to Medicine Hat.
Yep.
So now, somewhere in this process, decided, well, I can't handle Lloyd and Bonnyville, because I was the one of the sole instructors for some of the courses. So I was actually the one traveling to Lloyd to teach some of the courses, and we had
Yep.
somebody in house who could teach others, but it was just too much traveling back and forth to Bonnyville, a nearly 6 hour drive. That wasn't working well. So, we did keep both businesses for a while, closed the satellite office in Lloyd, but then some progression happened in Medicine Hat, where a competitor actually had approached and said, you know what, we're doing the same thing. Maybe we should look at doing it together.
Yeah.
So we had a merger with one of the local safety companies here. And, that was a really big step. That was a lot of expansion and growth that led us to just realize it's just not feasible to continue running Bonnyville. So the one of our partners who was managing there, she purchased the Safety Buzz branch in Bonnyville, just allowing us to grow. And as a lot of partnerships go, the partnership that we had with our merger didn't work so well. So about a year and so into the merge, the new partner said, "Hey, you know what? We want to go a different direction." So here we are faced with the decision of buying, and it kind of all history from there. As soon as we bought it, just opened us up to some new opportunities and new thoughts of growth. So there was a lot of work, a lot of sleepless nights, a lot of learning how to adapt to new people, new ideals. Yeah.
So I'm curious, like as you were growing and opening these different satellite locations and that, that takes a lot of energy. And you were doing a lot of that traveling back and forth and still doing the training, but also trying to probably do the business development aspects of it as well.
Yeah.
So there's a lot going on in that. Can you tell me what you think you would have done differently had if you were to face with that right now, where you're like, you know what, I'm going to start expanding again? What would you do differently this time around than what you did at that time?
Easy. I would figure out a way to hire a manager.
Yeah.
It always seemed out of the realm financially to be able to have somebody else manage, personally, to give up that power of having somebody manage it. Just, it didn't seem like the right move to ever make. And now in hindsight, with where we've gone with the business, that's definitely what should have been done. There was
Yeah.
too way much working in the business, not enough working on the business.
Yeah. I was just going to say, like, it's one of those things that is really difficult, I think, for us to take that step of what feels like maybe losing control a little bit, right? And having the trust in the people. But just like you said, in terms of the, number two on your list of the three things that every entrepreneur needs to know, it's surrounding yourself with that right team. And if you can do that, then the growth is just, it's the potential for growth is just huge. I think you really unleash the internal capabilities of all the people that are around you. So that would be the number one thing that you would do. Now I'm curious because a lot of people look at mergers and acquisitions as a way to expand as well, as opposed to going in and trying to stake your claim with a new brand for that area, wherever that area is that you're trying to expand into, and then compete with the existing players there. So mergers, acquisitions, for a lot of people, that looks to be from the outside a better way to do it. So if somebody were to venture down that road, what advice would you give them to basically position them for the greatest success in that, philosophy or strategy?
Well, do your homework and take a lot of time to really make sure, if a merger, for example,
Mm-hmm.
make sure that you mesh with the people.
Yeah.
We did do, I would say, a fair amount of homework. We took some time. We really explored values, and fit seemed pretty good. But when push came to shove, there was too many differences, and I think that a lot of times companies look at, okay, well, if we merge, we've got this natural growth, but there's a lot of obstacles to take on. As far as an acquisition, very similar. If
Yeah.
you're acquiring a team, how do you fit, and vice versa? So, yeah, I'm going to say really, it's about fit.
Yeah. Yeah, one of the things that some other people that I've talked to who have done a lot of mergers have said as well is the when you think about the merger, yes, you're buying a client list oftentimes, right? An existing business, maybe some facilities that are already in place, and the relationships that are within that new location, and maybe you're acquiring new capabilities through that too, because that company maybe has some adjacent services or products that they can offer as well. But at the end of the day, the real value is in that team that is there, and so you want to really make sure that you're focused on ways to incorporate that culture into your culture, and finding obviously one that fits within your culture, but then making sure that you really I guess are careful in ensuring that you have that continuity within those teams, because it's all about the relationships at the end of the day. And so if you misstep there, then that acquisition or merger can be just really, really painful. Would you agree?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And really looking at people's values, because what I was just talking about, having a manager or someone doing corporate development in place is so key. But if you're getting into business with someone who thinks of the I can do this all. I can be the end all be all. Why would we spend more money right away? Like that's a big red flag. And we've done a lot of business coaching over the years. I became a John Maxwell trainer to be able to learn how to lead better, how to run a business better, and everything that you will ever listen to will tell you to surround yourself with the right people,
Yeah.
and that you need to run your business, not be in your business. So,
Yeah.
that's a big ideal to always hold on to and to think about when you're looking at a merger, because quite often when people are selling, it's because they're so overwhelmed they can't handle it.
Yeah. So we hear this all the time. We work on your business, not in your business. But
Mhm.
it is difficult for an entrepreneur that has started a business and is growing it to let go of those reins, as we said, and kind of trust the people around you. But then also there's that mentality where oftentimes you're bootstrapping at the beginning, and so you just don't have the cash flow to be able to fund the management team that you need, so that you can kind of step outside of some of those roles and really focus. And in my business, that's where I'm at times too, where it is difficult, because you kind of have to get enough revenue and play to be able to
Yeah.
afford those people. And until you get to that level, it can be really painful, because you're kind of trying to do both. So I'm curious, with your experience, having gone through that, done the training as well, and the coaching that you do offer other people on this subject, what would you say would be that point in which, in your experience, you were able to start to make that transition from being in the business to now working on the business more so? Where were you at from a business standpoint when that transition occurred?
Yeah. Well, to be very transparent, it just happened about 3 years ago.
Yeah. Okay.
Being 17 years into the business, to really realize what changes needed to happen. And, we're extremely fortunate to have somebody really just fall into our lap, I'm going to say, who offered some advice and some coaching, and really gave us as a company the opportunity to say, okay, what is your budget? Where do you need help? And it was baby steps until we finally realized that, you know number one, we have to take the risk,
Yeah.
and number two, we have to realize that yes, there's money up front, but the payoff is going to be tenfold, and it's not easy. So, to actually be able to give a precise amount of revenue or amount of time or experience, I can't.
Yeah.
That is one thing. If I had a crystal ball, I would have just taken that leap years earlier and just realized you have to make it work. And if you can't, then discover a way to.
Yeah. Yeah. One of the things that in some of the conversations I've had with other entrepreneurs, a lot of them will say that first $1 million in revenue generation, like annual revenue, so not the accumulated first million, but once they got to an annual $1 million in revenue, that was kind of the point in which they were able to surround themselves with enough, they had enough revenue to hire in some managers, some people to take some of those hats off of them, and then
Mhm.
that next million and so on was just so much easier to achieve because they were able to start to focus their attention more on the business growth as opposed to the execution of those tasks. And so I'm not too sure where you're at, and some of the companies that you've worked with and that you've coached a little bit as well. But that's something that keeps surfacing is the first once you get to that first million, then things get a lot easier. And then there's other hurdles or other milestones that are really difficult to get to. But anyway, the first one is the toughest one, is what most people will say.
Yeah, yeah. I suppose that's probably a good target. It makes sense, and certainly it's not just the revenue, but it's making sure that you have that cash flow in place and
Yeah,
the right
yeah,
profit margins. And when you do have the right people in place, they're often going to be the ones that you're going to be working with on deciding how or is the company going to grow, and what areas should you really target for growth. And then in order to grow, chances are what assets need to be purchased, what
yeah,
hiring needs to happen. So it's a constant flux where you've got the ups and downs of, okay, things are looking really good, we're at a place we need to be. Oh, but now we need to look at this. And
yeah,
okay, well, it's all good. Oh, but now it's going to be human resources. So the $1 million mark, I would tend to agree. It's probably a pretty decent goal, but taking everything into consideration, because it's very, very easy to make $1 million, but to spend 1.5 million.
yeah. That is so true. Yeah, no, it doesn't seem like there's ever a shortage of places to put the revenue. That's for sure. Yeah, yeah.
Nope.
So I'm curious, from the early days, 20 years ago to where you're at now, what do you
Mhm.
find easier today than it was in those earlier days as you were navigating through the growth and everything else that has been along the journey that you've been on? So what's easier today with all the experience that you have now?
Everything.
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 Yeah.
Yeah. Well, as part of our decision to hire the right people, one of the choices that Sheldon and I had very early on was, okay, if you're looking at your business and you want to see where you want to be within the business, we both expressed that we don't want to be at the business all the time.
Yeah.
We've got a young son. Sheldon's got two boys that are, they're graduating. We want to be a really big part of their lives. And it kills me when I look back to when my son was in preschool, and there was times where, well, a lot of times he was the first one there and he was the last one being picked up. And
Yeah.
it
Yeah.
just makes me want to cry to this day. And I said that can't happen. So even, for example, this summer, like, we staff ourselves accordingly. We have the right team. So we come in and we spend a little time at work, but we spend most of the time with our family over the summer. And, that's certainly made things a world easier. And we really, most of the time, I would say 90% of the time, is focusing on the business. We are involved in the business, such as instructing, only when we feel like it.
Clockwork is a really interesting book that talks a little bit about that, trying to basically systematize your business so that and the test is so you can take 30 days off
Yeah.
and let your business run on its own. And so that's the goal, the end goal, or sorry, the first goal, I suppose you could say, of the clockworking process of your business. And it's all about systems, right? And so that's one of
Yeah.
the biggest challenges that I think I've had as my business is growing, because when you start to let go of some of those responsibilities, but you still want to have an execution of, at an excellence level, right?
Mm.
You need to have the systems in place to ensure that that happens. And so that's the biggest challenge I find, is just systematizing everything. And then once you have it systematized, then you can start to analyze it then for efficiencies and start to find those incremental gains, which are going to, generally speaking, get deposited on your bottom line. So it all starts with that systematization and understanding that part too. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
100%.
so speaking of that, that 20 years of experience. Now, if you could write a letter and send it back to your, younger entrepreneurial self, so that person 20 years ago who is making the leap into entrepreneurship, what would you put in that letter? What would you tell young Amy?
I would tell her, get ready for the ride. It's going to be really tough.
Buckle up.
There's buckle up. There's going to be days where you just want to lay in bed, but you can't.
Yeah.
There's going to be times where you are more frustrated than you can imagine. You have now put yourself in a position that you are working with people all the time, and that is the most difficult thing you will do in your life.
Yeah.
But on the flip side, that you're going to enjoy every second of it. You're going to build amazing relationships. You're going to build a team. You're going to be able to put food on the table and a roof over a lot of people's heads, and just 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 to enjoy it. Don't get discouraged. Just enjoy it. And I guess probably one of the biggest themes: surround yourself with the right team.
Yeah.
And I guess something else too, just realize there's going to be hard decisions, and especially whenever it comes to people,
Yeah.
there's difficult decisions that need to be made. And when it's time, make them. Don't look back. Don't feel bad, because you've done a lot of good. You've helped a lot of people, but there's going to be people that it just isn't going to work out with.
Yeah, man, I can relate to that. That I find human resource management is one of the greatest, most fun things to do if there wasn't humans involved in it. it it's so difficult to make those decisions because we care about those people, right? And so when we hire somebody, when we have somebody on the team, we hired them for a reason, that we saw the potential. And so when that just does not pan out, it's so hard to give up on them and to make that cut. But it's so important to do it, and to do it quickly, like you said, and not dwell on it. Don't beat yourself up. It's not going to be a home run every time when you hire somebody, but learn from it and try to improve with your next hire, right?
For sure.
Yeah. So I also wanted, before we go, is to celebrate your win here this spring. So you received the Small Business Entrepreneur of the Year award with the Alberta Chambers of Commerce, so the ABAT Awards, which was just such a thrilling thing. I was there in person announcing, or being there on stage, I guess, when you were announced as the winner, and it was just so exciting to see everybody celebrating all the excellence that was in that room. And so congratulations to you guys, because it is such a struggle day in and day out as small business owners, to like you said, kind of get yourself out of bed in the morning sometimes. And you obviously are doing it and being recognized for it, so congratulations on that.
Well, thank you so much. It gives me goosebumps. That was one of the most amazing days.
Yeah.
We've been a recipient of a few local chamber awards, but man, to be recognized across Alberta, it's something else, and it sure is a good team win.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. That's right. You celebrated as a team, for sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Amy. I really appreciate you coming by today and chatting with us. Is there a method that you would prefer that people use to reach out to you if anybody wanted to connect with you to learn more about what you guys do over there at Safety Buzz Campus, or just to connect with you on a personal level?
Certainly, we just built a wonderful new website. So it's safetybuzzcampus.ca. It'll give you a journey all about our team and what we do at the campus. For just reaching out to me, LinkedIn is probably my favorite means. Certainly, both the company and myself are on Facebook as well. But yeah, LinkedIn would work awesome.
Sounds great. That's Amy Zuk Olsen, for those of you who want to search her up on LinkedIn. So thank you again. I really appreciate your time today. And for those who are listening, if you enjoyed this episode, you want to check out the archives, head over to amplifyyourbusiness.ca. That's where you're going to find all sorts of different entrepreneur stories. We're well over 250 of them now. So check out that archive. And if you're not following us on your favorite podcasting platform, just search Amplify Your Business and you can subscribe so you don't miss an episode there as well. Until next time, everybody have a prosperous day.